Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today. Tacitus at your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about mass migration to Germany. Now, it's a bit difficult to get an accurate reading on sort of German migration because they seem to have different systems for what they qualify or classify rather as refugees, illegals, legal migration, skilled migration, all this. It just seems to be, I struggle anyway to find what's going on. Based on an article that I recently read, the migration to Germany was depending on how you count the illegals and refugees, was between 1.6 and 1.8 million last year. Now, a lot of those were refugees from Ukraine, so which was, depending on whose numbers you look at, between 1.1 and 1.2 million. So that would suggest that migration, including refugees and illegals and all others, were coming in at say somewhere around half, say between 400 and 600,000 last year. Or in that area, that region, that ballpark. Now, the German government has just recently, the federal government has just recently changed the laws to lower the qualifications. So, whereas you technically at least had to speak some German to get to be able to qualify, that's been lowered. So. Even my sort of very ordinary, poor quality German might be enough to get me over the line on that. And nor have I needed to speak it on a regular basis for many, many years now. But whenever I went to Germany on business, all the elites spoke English, so I never really needed to. Their English was better than my German, so we conversed in English. Now. The government's changed, so you don't need to speak as much German. Now, I don't know exactly what the threshold is, but some pundits on the other side are saying that people with almost no German can get in. The other thing is qualifications. There used to be some requirement to have at least some sort of skills. This didn't apply to a lot of the refugees, though. They were brought in on. They were being victimized because they were LGBTQ or something like that. So all the requirement to speak German and the skills requirement was waived. As we know, that refugee is a racket and a scam of the first magnitude. These people aren't fucking refugees. They're not being persecuted. They're just trying to freeload off a rich white Western country. So anyway, the requirements have been reduced. Now, there are various sort of views and attitudes on what this will mean in terms of numbers. It'll be easier for third world illiterate peasants to come to Germany, and no doubt the people smugglers will take note. The massive NGO, United Nations infrastructure to move vast numbers of brown and black people from the third world to the first world will kick into action, and they'll be going. Agitators will be going around the refugee camps or whatever as we speak, trying to gin up people to say, "Hey, why don't you make a journey to the West? Don't worry, we'll cover everything. We'll provide all transport, all clothing, all food, all water. Everything will be provided, including way stations for you to sleep at night. So it'll all be laid on." And you can go to the rich West and freeload off them. So this is, with no doubt that the numbers will increase. To what extent? No one seems to know. Now, if we look at say the trend of or the approximate recent numbers, at least, of mass migration to Germany, it's somewhere in the region of 400,000 per annum. Not last year, but sort of recently. That doesn't account for the million, I think it was in 2015, was it? Now by the population in Germany around 80 million, so the population coming in at 400,000 by the current mass migration standards of the Western world, it's not high. Australia has nearly that much, with a population about a third, a little bit less than a third of Germany's, and Australia has 400,000. So 400,000 in Germany is much, but it depends on the quality, as always. In Australia, less than between 3 and 5%. 5% is generous. Between 3 and 5% of the migrants are actually qualified at anything, speak functional English, and have internationally recognised qualifications, and have skills that are needed or somewhat needed in the economy. So the number of people coming in, out of the Australian total of 400,000 coming in, you'd be lucky if, say, somewhere between 12 and 20,000 people are migrants, are any good. Most of those are white, from Ireland and places like that. So really the amount of black and brown people coming in who are qualified at anything and are good for anything is very small. Sure, they can sweep floors and work at takeout chicken shops or something, like drive taxis maybe, but that's all. So they're not adding to the economy in any way, and they want to bring out half their village and all their second and third cousins so they can live off the welfare of the rich white Western country. So anyway, so the German thing, the one of the prominent people in Antifa in Germany was quoted at saying how wonderful it is that more brown and black people are going to come to Germany because of the diversity and the diversity and the diversity and the diversity is somehow going to make everything good. It's going to turn Germany into some sort of fucking paradise. Now let's look at the different sort of people. I'm sort of talking to a working class German, guy who sort of dropped out of high school and he's got no college. Not a genius or not a bright guy. He seems quite hardworking, industrious stuff. So now he's kind of a foreman labourer, I suppose you'd call him. And to him, this is not a good thing. He's not in support of it, nor does he know anyone who is. So he doesn't want the mass migration. Talking to a guy who's sort of like a supervising, I think he's a mechanical engineer, supervising mechanical engineer. He doesn't want it. He doesn't like it. Talking to a guy who's foreman in a Mercedes mechanic shop. He doesn't want it. The migration, the mass migration. So it's hard to find anyone who really supports the mass migration other than the wealthy and the college kids. College kids being too dumb to know that they're destroying their own future every time another black or brown person crosses the border. They can't quite follow that. It stuns me. They don't realise the damage they do to themselves, but they want to feel very virtuous as they destroy their own future, I guess. Now let's go to someone who's well-to-do. Now this is someone who's worth at the very minimum $10 million US, more than that. Sort of got a nice income from a trust fund. Doesn't have to worry about money or think about where it's coming from. Can enjoy by anyone's standards, a high level of annual expenditure. Can spend a lot of money on holidays and vacations and cars and all sorts of things like that. Can afford to send the kids to $100,000 a year private schools and the like. So money is not a concern. Lives in a very quiet, leafy, tree-lined suburb where you don't see a brown face unless it's a labourer or someone to clean the swimming pool or something like that. So he says that he assures me that Germany needs all these brown and black peasants from the third world. Germany can't remain a rich country without it. So now this is parroting a line that's just a globalist World Economic Forum, BlackRock fund manager type propaganda. So I was interested to know. So I played dumb. So wow, is that right? So what will they do? All these illiterate third world peasants with no qualifications. How will they make Germany a rich country? And of course, he didn't know. He sort of stared around, and he's in a bubble of people where they all go, "Oh, we need these illiterate peasants." Yeah. Let's have another drink. Let's open another bottle of champagne. So when you actually ask them, well, how will these illiterate third world peasants, how will they make Germany a richer country? How will they make, or any country, a richer place or better place? Will they mean it's more, harder working? Is it more going to be more law abiding? How will it be richer if they've got no qualifications, can't even speak the fucking language? They can't speak English, they can't speak German. Well, English is like the second language in Germany. So how the fuck are they going to contribute to anything? Most of these people not only have no work skills, they've never had a job. They've never had to turn up at work, in the morning. They've never lived in a cold climate where, on a freezing cold, snow-covered morning, you have to get out of bed at 5 o'clock to get to work by 6:30. They've never had that life, that discipline. Most of them can't handle it. So what value? I mean, I didn't say it this way. I'm sort of trying to get him to say how it's going to value, and his wife too. How are they going to add value? And they just couldn't answer it. They just didn't know. Now, when they say, "Oh, these people are needed. Oh, they're so needed. Germans won't do the work." When they say, you ask, well, how will they add value, and what will they do to add value? They just can't tell you. Now they give you a dark look, like, well, why are you asking me this question? You're just supposed to nod along and say yes and agree. You're not supposed to ask hard questions. You damn fascist Nazi sort of thing. But they don't know. So the people that are in support, the same goes for college kids, by the way. Anyone who's in support of it cannot tell you how it's better. They can talk, the diversity, but they can't tell you how it's going economically, how it's a rational decision. Now, you just need to think about this. You're the minister, the director, the secretary of economics in Germany, and someone's pitching to you, well, how are we going to make Germany a richer country? Well, we'd lower the cost of energy. We'd make Germans more productive, better at maybe more education or something, or we'd specially use taxes to try and encourage investment, and so on and so forth. You'd be talking along those lines, encouraging local families to maybe have more children, and using tax incentives to do that. So those would be the things you'd be considering. But no, for some reason, and Germans are not stupid, for some reason, you're going to say, I know, let's bring out a whole bunch of illiterate brown and black peasants from completely different cultures who have no experience and no culture of working 9 to 5, who are illiterate in their own language and who have no qualifications or expertise, who've never had a job in their lives. Let's bring out a shitload of them, and that'll make the country rich. Oh yeah, I mean, you couldn't. It's beyond absurd, but that's what's going on now. We know people who have relatives who've married into, say, African families, for example. Screaming leftist college kids who've decided they're going to be socially virtuous if they marry black men, refugees. I married a black refugee. I'm so fucking virtuous, says little Christabel or something like that, or little Silka. Anyway, so they get married, and these guys, they've got no, they've never worked in their lives ever. They still live tribal customs. They stay up until 3 a.m. and don't wake up until midday, and these sorts of things. And why should they change? The government will give them money, and they've never worked or they don't understand anything about work and economics and this and that and next thing. So why should they change? So these are the sort of people being brought out. Now you can hardly say, well, they're adding to the economy. Far from it. So it's again, we're talking about a globalist project to move as many black and brown people out of the third world into the first world for no purpose other than to dilute and eradicate and replace the white Western population, and to make sure all the white people are treading on eggshells. So all the white people have to, are you a racist? Are you a Nazi? Oh yeah, what did you just post on social media, and so on. And so everyone's tiptoeing around, treading on eggshells because of these imported people. And then the globalist controlled white government you're supposed to be elected and supposed to represent you is actually turned against you and is openly and brazenly and aggressively taking away your rights. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.